Hi, this is Wade Kerzie from Mike Emery Golf. This is the first in a series of videos we're going to do for you to help you, regardless of your skill level, learn how to incorporate Mike Emery approach into your golf game. Before we get started with our first lesson, let's talk about the foundation of Mike's teaching. It's a result of many years of research and understanding of the human body. Mike's teaching centers around the natural resistance points we all have within our body. But we're all different. We are a different size, stature, muscle mass, and that means we have resulting different flexibilities. But I'm going to show you demonstrate one of the physical limitations or anatomical limitations that we have. You can do this at home. Stand here with your arm at 90 degrees. Then take your forearm and go backwards as far as you can. That's as far as my shoulder will let me go. You know, what's interesting is if I incorporate a golf club into that, and now I get in my posture and turn, there's the top of my backswing. The key to that is the top of my backswing. Because if someone could only go, say, that far back, and I put a club there, and I get in position and turn, someone might look at that and say, well, that person has a more upright golf swing. Well, what's interesting is all of the great players always worked up against their anatomical limitations. That's why Hogan looked different than Snead. Snead looked different than Nelson. We'll get back to those guys in a minute. By the way, one of the themes you're going to see throughout these videos is we're going to talk about the great golf swings, the gold standards of the golf swing that we've all acknowledged for years. We're going to unravel some of current teaching, modern teaching, and we're going to incorporate Mike's approach and show you how that's what the greats did in their golf swings. Before we go any further, though, I'm going to use a modern-day example of Jim Furyk. Jim Furyk has a very interesting golf swing, as we all know, and takes the club back very unorthodox. But what he does, and I encourage you to go to Google and take a look at videos of his swing, even still images of his swing, and watch what he does at transition. Because even though he takes the club up in a very strange position, when he transitions, his right arm goes to that extreme. Now, why is that extreme important to us? Because the extreme positions in our bodies produce repeatability, stability, and strength. So we want all three of those things. So we're going to use different components, different portions of our body that are going to work up against those positions so that we can gain that stability and strength, and we can do it the same way every time. So let's move on into our first lesson, and we're going to talk about the grip. We're going to talk about why the current grip that most people use is incorrect, with the club laid at an angle across your palm. Why is that incorrect? Here's why. Now, with that club set across at an angle across my palm, I can take my wrist to this position right here. I have the flexibility. That's called ulnar deviation. I have the flexibility to go to a straight line. My arm and the shaft are a straight line. But we don't want that, because when we're in our setup position, there's an angle here. And when we swing, regardless of whether you swing at 60, 80, 100 plus miles an hour, your arm's going to straighten and your wrist is going to straighten to the maximum level that it can go to. Well, if I have an angle at address, and when I'm coming into impact, I'm going to have a straight line. You see how my posture had to straighten up? I had to stand up in the golf swing. The second thing I have to do, in order to square the club face with all this being in a straight line, is I have to roll my forearm, or flip. So I have to flip the club. Well, at 100 plus miles an hour with driver, or 80 miles an hour with an iron, who wants to be taking a risk of flipping and having the club face only square for a short period of time? With Mike's approach, you grip the club across this row of knuckles right here, the first row of knuckles. It has a big long name. You don't need to know the name of it. It's in the book. You grip the club across those knuckles with a long left thumb, and you see this gap here. This is what you want. Why? Because it provides stability at the top of the swing, and more importantly, watch this. As I come into the ball, using the proper grip is automatically going to prohibit me from flipping. So, with the proper grip, I'm coming into the ball, I can't flip, because if I flip, watch when I roll my forearm, I'll do it in slow motion. I miss the ball. So what your body does, and you will be amazed at how almost instinctively this happens. You have to let it happen, but what your body's going to do is it's going to take this left wrist into what we call a flexion position to square the club face. See the club? Watch when my wrist bends. Now, that's also a natural resistance point. So the proper grip has prohibited me from going to a straight line. See that? That's as far as I can go. With the club laid there and a long left thumb, that's as far as I can go. And then, if I use flexion of the left wrist, I've squared the club face much earlier on the downswing. So you've got a square club face long before, during, and after impact. So trust it. Use the grip directly across those knuckles with a long left thumb. Expect a few of the early misses to be thin, but trust yourself, hit a lot of wedges, and let yourself get used to squaring the club early, going on through impact with flexion in the left wrist. Impact will be our next discussion and our next video. In the meantime, follow Mike Emery Golf on Twitter and Facebook, and go to MikeEmeryGolf.com to buy the book.